Talking now. Oh, okay. Hello and welcome. A special good morning to all you viewers watching GIS Live. We thank you so much for tuning in. Today is another day for the sitting of the Parliament of St. Lucia. We are coming to you live from downtown Castries from Parliament Building. And coming off of Tuesday's sitting of the House of Assembly, we're continuing in usual fashion with a sitting of the Upper House, the Senate, today. My name is Jessie Leonce. Just to go over the order paper, we will be having papers to be laid by the Honorable Minister for Health and Wellness and Leader of Government Business. Also, we will be having papers laid by the Honorable Minister for Home Affairs, Justice and National Security, as well as the Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Tourism, Information, Broadcasting, Culture and the Creative Industries, responsible for culture and the creative industries. As like Tuesday, we'll be having the motions being forwarded in the Honorable House. Be it resolved that Parliament authorizes the Minister of Finance to borrow an amount of US $3,750,000 from the CARICOM Development Fund for the purpose of providing financial assistance to support of the implementation of the Village Tourism Initiative by enhancing specified infrastructure and supporting eligible small and medium-sized enterprises. The second motion, be it resolved that Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance to borrow an additional sum of US $5 million by way of credit from the International Development Association, that is the World Bank, for capital expenditure for the Health System Strengthening Project. And the third motion, being brought forward to the sitting of the Senate this morning, the Parliament authorizes the Minister for Finance to guarantee a loan in the amount of Euro $5,750,000 from the European Investment Bank by the St. Lucia Development Bank for on-lending to micro, small and medium-sized enterprises. And we will also have bills being laid by the Honorable Minister for Health and Wellness and Leader of Government Business, Senator the Honorable Mary Isaac. And the bills: Credit Reporting, Companies and Intellectual Property Registry Amendment Bill, and the COVID-19 Prevention and Control bills. The lead stories emerging from the government of St. Lucia, meantime, that the sitting of the Senate is scheduled to begin at 10 a.m. But in the meantime, we'll just go over some of the lead stories coming from the government of St. Lucia for you today, the 1st of October 2020. We are going to go over the stories emerging from the parliamentary sitting on Tuesday, 29th September 2020. The government of St. Lucia has taken another significant step in its efforts at bolstering the local economy amid the challenges of COVID-19. On Tuesday, 29th September 2020, during the sitting of Parliament, the Minister for Finance, Honorable Alan Chasney, was authorized to guarantee a loan in the amount of Euro $5,750,000 from the European Investment Bank by the St. Lucia Development Bank for on-lending to micro, small and medium-sized enterprises. Minister for Commerce, Industry, Investment, Enterprise Development and Consumer Affairs, the Honorable Bradley Felix, told the House that the loan facility will be of tremendous value to the small business community. We go to our first clip of the morning, taking a look back at the House of Assembly proceedings with Honorable Bradley Felix.
One of the restrictions in terms of small businesses being able to go forward is that commercial banks have sort of tightened up in the area of lending. And so, Mr. Speaker, we welcome the avenue of the St. Lucia Development Bank in being able to release such assistance to these entities. We also note, Mr. Speaker, the very, very generous rates, lending rates that have been applied, which obviously would make it a lot more attractive and a lot more feasible and sustainable for some of these businesses. We hope that the SLDB will also provide very generous other terms to enable the businesses to pick up and make up in these very, very difficult times post-COVID.
Now, Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries, Cooperatives and Natural Resources, Honorable Ezekiel Joseph, praised the initiative, noting that farmers, fishers and particularly our agro-processors will have a direct access to financial assistance.
We have a number of persons we know because we have been involved with them. I have met with them, the ministry have met with them, and what they are telling us is that, look, they want the type of financial resources that will enable them to continue their business. So here it is again, Mr. Speaker. C'est gens qui ont fait agro-processing. Qui ont une opportunité pour joindre l'argent pour continuer le business, Mr. Speaker. So gouvernement ça, gouvernement Flobo, Mr. Speaker, c'est un gouvernement qui nous let away. Let away. C'est ça que c'est the small people.
And the Minister for Equity, Social Justice, Local Government and Empowerment, Honorable Leonard Mantut, indicated that the loan facility at the SLDB is just one avenue by government to ensure that St. Lucians can recover in a sustainable manner from the financial damage of COVID-19.
We do not want to have a situation where St. Lucians will forever remain dependent on government for any kind of handouts or to provide them assistance. So this is the part I'm most pleased and proud of, Mr. Speaker, that this government has the foresight to take the initiative to put in place programs and initiatives that will set the platform for St. Lucians to do for themselves what they can do best, that is to become self-sufficient and independent, and on the back end of COVID-19, that puts St. Lucia in a position where it is better prepared than even before COVID. And so, Mr. Speaker, how best can you do that but to invest in our people? Mr. Speaker, and not just our people, we looked at those people who are in small enterprises, micro enterprises. We look at locals, Mr. Speaker.
The terms of the loan agreement include a commitment fee that is 25 basis points, that is 0.25% per annum charge on the unwithdrawn funds as of 6 months after the signature date. The loan is repayable over a period of 12 years from the date of the first disbursement of the loan, inclusive of a 4-year grace period. The rate of interest is as determined by the St. Lucia Development Bank, and the European Investment Bank is payable on the outstanding balance of each. The loan repayments commence after the grace period of 4 years has expired. In more COVID-related developments coming out of Tuesday's Parliament sitting, the COVID Prevention and Control Bill was tabled and passed in the lower house. In piloting the bill, Prime Minister Honorable Alan Chasney said that the legislation is in direct response to the prediction of the World Health Organization that COVID-19 will be around for the next 2 years, with no vaccine on the immediate horizon and many countries witnessing a second wave of the infection. And therefore it was necessary for St. Lucia to take urgent and necessary action, particularly as the economy reopens.
Our main risk to community outbreak at this point include the following. Some of our tourism markets remain at high risk given their rates of infection. The illegal entry of persons from countries of high risk and are interacting socially in our communities. The non-adherence of some citizens to home quarantining. The non-adherence of some visitors to hotel protocols. The reduced use and poor use of face masks in public places. The increased mass crowd events noted across the island. The breaches to established protocols within some business places. The crowding of public buses without the use of face masks.
Prime Minister Chasney stressed that the bill is not a state of emergency and is not for the sole purpose of controlling the spread of COVID-19 and does not conflict with any other piece of legislation. Fundamentally, the COVID Prevention and Control Bill provides oversight in the reopening of businesses in the main sector of tourism.
Certification is based on the presentation of COVID-19 response plans as required and must be approved by the Ministry of Health. It is also approved upon completion of the COVID-19 protocol training. Businesses shall be subject to an inspection upon receipt of the plan, after which a COVID-19 compliance certificate may be issued with or without conditions in accordance with the bill. The Ministry of Tourism shall ensure that the businesses that have received certification are listed in the Gazette. This also applies to cases where the certificate has been revoked, and in such cases a tourism business will cease to operate until corrective action is taken by the operator. In addition, the bill provides the legal basis for the command center, which was created during the state of emergency. The bill operates outside of the state of emergency, and therefore the Prime Minister is no longer recognized as the only competent authority to carry out the provisions of the bill.
Now, responding to concerns about the bill's enactment, Prime Minister Shastny reminded that the bill remains in the main collection of the statutory instruments agreed upon over the last 6 months with all stakeholders.
The Attorney General's office has come up with a great alternative. And that alternative, Mr. Speaker, is to create a specific act. And what is that act? That act is simply the accumulation of all of the SIs that we have done. So when persons say they've had no involvement or consultation, we quickly remind them that we've not done anything new. All we've done is taken the SIs in which they consulted and were part of and put them all under one act. And we gave it a life of 2 years. Why did we choose 2 years? Because 2 years is pretty much the consensus of the experts as to how long it may take. Now, the experts may be wrong, and it's going to take less. And if it does, then the Minister of Health can recommend that the act be terminated. But there also might be a possibility, Mr. Speaker, that it may be longer than 2 years, and that we may have to extend it. But the fact is, we cannot stay in a permanent state of emergency, because as members on the opposite side and many members of the civil society would know, that in essence, the state of emergency gives the government much broader powers. Doesn't even have to be for COVID issues. Although I am very proud about the members on this side, that even with that awesome authority, that we have never abused it for 1 minute and have stayed in the context of COVID-19.
The COVID Prevention and Control Bill will make provision for the imposition of monitoring devices on persons in home quarantine, as well as for the payment of stay at government quarantine facilities. And to date, we've so far had 2,257 persons undergoing home quarantine. 1,594 have been housed at government quarantine facilities, and 8,120 COVID-19 tests have so far been conducted on island. So the COVID-19 Prevention and Control Bill was just one of 3 bills forwarded in the Honorable House on Tuesday, and as we previously spoke of, the authorization given to the Minister for Finance to guarantee the euro $5,750,000 from the European Investment Bank is just one of the motions, one of 3 motions also being forwarded in the House on Tuesday. As we continue again with the proceedings today, Thursday, with the sitting of the Senate in usual fashion, these 3 motions and these 3 bills will be brought to the Honorable House for consideration. Do stay tuned. When we come back, we go over other updates and developments coming out of the government of St. Lucia.
What's in the food you're eating? Do you really even know? All the chemicals and hormones used to accelerate their growth. All the artificial flavoring, sweeteners and colors too. We consume and we don't spare a thought for the damage that they'll do. No, think about the children. Think about the children. How will we save them? Chemicals and GMOs are not the solution. Use organic and join. Excessive agrochemical use, additives, and genetically modified foods are harmful to health and the environment. Join the good food revolution. Grow, buy, and consume organic. A message from Rise St. Lucia and the Ministry of Sustainable Development with funding from the GEF Small Grants Program, UNDP. The good food revolution.
Thank you so much for staying with us. We are coming to you live from downtown Castries, the Parliament building in Castries, with another sitting of Parliament. We saw earlier this week, Tuesday, the 29th of September 2020, the sitting of the House of Assembly, where 3 motions and 3 bills were forwarded in the Honourable House. We also had papers being laid by government ministers. The same will obtain in today's sitting as usual. And in the meantime, we continue with the latest updates coming from the government of St. Lucia as we await the commencement of today's sitting. The Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS, heads of government have seen the remarks made by the head of London Heathrow Airport on 29 September 2020, warning that UK aviation could suffer the same fate as London docks if air travel cannot resume in volume before COVID vaccine is found. Mr. John Holland Kay, London Heathrow Chief Executive Officer, in a conversation with Travel Weekly, warned of a catastrophe for UK aviation, including the potential demise of British Airways if air travel is not resumed. His recommendation and solution are for the consideration of testing at the UK airports to ensure that all travelers are COVID-free and to allow such persons freedom to travel. While the OECS authority is concerned about the prediction, the Commission says it is heartened by the call, which strengthens its own efforts internationally in seeking the establishment of PCR testing facilities at airports to ensure that every traveler is tested and only persons who are deemed to be COVID-free will be allowed on board to travel. Discussions with an international company should be concluded this week, and the Commission expects that this will result in the establishment of PCR testing facilities at all source airports as well as cruise and ferry ports to the Caribbean. The heads of government of the OECS are therefore issuing an urgent call to the governments and other stakeholders of the tourism source markets to work with the region in putting this solution in place and to demonstrate the viability of this approach to the safe restoration of the travel and tourism industry. And meanwhile, a noticeable shift in the international community toward pre-testing follows an intense lobby by St. Lucia's Prime Minister for airlines to take on the lead in pre-testing. Honorable Alan Chastain has held numerous meetings with international stakeholders and advocated the position during several international media appearances. He spoke to the issue during Tuesday's sitting of the Parliament. We now go to a pre-testing clip from the Honorable Prime Minister.
This idea that persons can go on a plane and you don't even know if the person next to you has COVID or not. And so we've seen examples around the world and in our region where persons have arrived who've been pre-tested along with people who are not pre-tested, only to be told when they were at their hotel or back at their home that the person you were sitting next to had COVID and you yourself have to go into quarantine. So St. Lucia has been almost on a one-country crusade to encourage the world to adopt pre-testing as an international policy. And I am very proud of the fact that in 6 weeks of advocacy that we've now gotten IATA to join us, the governor of the U.S. Virgin Islands, the prime ministers of the OECS, the governor of New York, Cuomo, now has said and insisted and defied CDC and said everybody coming into a New York airport must be pre-tested.
Continuing with news for the morning, the Department of Environmental Health has embarked on a series of community-based activities to combat the outbreak of dengue fever on island. We have more in this report. As part of a targeted response to significant increases in trends of dengue viral infection on island, the Environmental Health Unit collaborates with the Department of Education and community groups to control vector populations. The new academic year, coinciding with the dengue outbreak, has prompted a multifaceted approach to reduce the likelihood of viral transmission on school compounds island-wide. Glenda Etienne Sipal is one of the environmental health officers on the job.
Currently, we've been doing that in 3 phases. In the first phase, we conducted assessments at the schools, treating for the aquatic stages of the mosquito. And in the second phase, we conducted fogging operations, which was completed on Saturday. And currently, our education session is in progress. Today, we are at the Gordon Walcott Memorial Methodist School. And we're hoping that the same thing that we've been doing at the other schools, sharing the information with the children, engaging them in discussions so that they can protect themselves, their family. You know that because of their age, it may not be easy for them to get the information all at once. So we're hoping that we're using different mediums. We're hoping that at least 1 or 2 messages will stick with them so that they can protect themselves.
School safety officer in the Department of Education, Mr. Bernes Kodra, hopes that sensitization efforts will have a ripple effect throughout the communities.
The students themselves will go back home and pass on that information to the parents. Well, we want to encourage parents and the general public to take care of their environment. And when we speak of the environment, we speak of the surroundings around your home, whether you have uncovered drums or containers, that water is not left for breeding of mosquitoes. We encourage persons to cut the grass or the bush around their homes. We want to encourage persons to have a healthy environment so that the community at large would benefit.
Data trends show that most of the reported cases of dengue are concentrated in the northern, central and eastern regions of the island. The Banans community in South Castries has sprung into action with a cleanup activity to reduce potential breeding sites for the mosquitoes on the advice of the Environmental Health Unit.
In our routine surveillance, what we have seen within the community of Bananas is quite a bit of containers, drums, accumulation of garbage, which allows the proliferation of mosquitoes within the community. So what we did, we contacted some of the group leaders or community leaders within the Banan area, and this cleanup campaign was organized. So
that was Environmental Health Officer Charlotte Charles. The Banans neighborhood pitched in for a beautification project, a litter cleanup, clearing of waterways to prevent stagnation. Community leader Mario Xavier encourages other communities to follow suit.
I just want to encourage the different communities to put their little self together, ask for little sponsors, and everybody in the community come together and do their little cleanups, because you know now we have this little problem with dengue and all other stuff, you know, and it's not looking nice when we living in a place or we living in a place that have rubbish and mosquitoes, so everybody want to be comfortable. So yeah, once again I just want to thank everybody that make this possible.
Xavier thanks the Ministry of Health and Wellness and the parliamentary representative for the area, Dr. the Honorable Ernest Hilaire, for supporting the initiative. The community hopes to make the cleanup a monthly activity. For the Government Information Service, I am Jessie Leonce reporting. And finally, in our lead stories for the 24-hour news cycle from the government of St. Lucia, the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports has facilitated first aid training for coaches. We have the details from Ryan O'Brien from the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports. Take a look.
St. John Ambulance St. Lucia recently partnered with the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports to provide skills and knowledge for coaches attached to the ministry in the area of life-saving procedures for persons they might encounter with emergencies. The coaches were divided into 2 groups, each group having a specific 2-day period of training in both theory and practice in first aid.
The aim is to give them as much information, knowledge, practice and skills in preparation of responding to emergencies. They wanted an explanation as to why do this and why not that, because we encountered many old wives' tales, and so they wanted to sort of dispel some of those myths and really understand why is it first aid is different from something else that I've learned from a child.
Cricket coach Kedilis Porris was one of the trainees and described the two-day session as interesting and exciting.
I got a lot of knowledge on first aid, a lot of things I didn't know, stuff like the free pays, preserve life, promote recovery, and prevent further injuries. There's so much to learn about first aid that we need to know. It may not always apply in sports, but it may apply at home as well. So it's very important that we know the basics of first aid.
The master trainer was pleased with what he determined was great engagement by the participants.
The participants were really involved and really were eager to learn the new protocols and see what were the better techniques to use in the event children or family members become in distress.
St. John's is a charity that has been operating in St. Lucia for more than 8 years. From the Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, I'm Ryan O'Brien.
Well, that makes the lead stories coming from the government of St. Lucia. We continue to await the commencement of this morning's proceedings from the House of Parliament. It's where we're coming to you live this morning. We've so far seen two senators in the Honourable House. But just to give you some information, coming off of Tuesday's sitting of the House of Assembly, we will be seeing three motions, the three same motions being forwarded from Tuesday's sitting to today's sitting of the Upper House, the sitting of the Senate, and also the three bills, the Credit Reporting Bill, Companies and Intellectual Property Registry Amendment Bill, and the COVID-19 Prevention and Control Bill being tabled here in the Honourable House for today's Senate sitting. And as the proceedings for today draw nigh, I just want to alert you to the appointment of three new senators in the Upper House. We have the senator from the government side, the senator, the Honourable Farah Polius, will be making her debut in the Honourable House today. The Office of the Prime Minister did issue a release announcing the new senator. It indicated that retired lecturer and Dennery native Angelina Farah Polius has been appointed and will be sworn in as a government senator in the Parliament of St. Lucia at the next sitting of the Senate, and that is today. To give you some back information, Polius joins the Senate as the 9th member of the Upper House, an energetic and dynamic community activist, people-centered leader and educator. Ms. Polius is humbled to serve the people of St. Lucia. Ms. Polius holds a bachelor's degree with first-class honors in education from the University of the West Indies and a master's in New Literacies, University of Sheffield. She is currently pursuing a Doctor of Education with UNICAF University in Organizational Change and Leadership. Cumulatively, she has over 30 years of service as a teacher and was a lecturer for almost 13 years at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, Division of Teacher Education and Educational Administration. And when I indicated that I've so far seen two senators in the Honourable House, she is one of them here bright and early for the start of today's proceedings, along with a government senator, the Honourable Francisco Jean-Pierre. We also have two new senators from the parliamentary opposition. The St. Lucia Labour Party has welcomed these two new senators. We all welcome these two new senators. They are in the persons of Senator the Honourable Terrence Kent Sinclair and Senator the Honourable Lissa C. Jahir. They will be replacing Joachim Henry and Jerome Gideon. In a release coming from the St. Lucia Labour Party, they did indicate that they are pleased to announce the appointment of the two new senators effective immediately. Terrence Kent Sinclair and Lissa C. Jahir bring a balance of experience and youthfulness to the St. Lucia Labour Party's parliamentary team and to the national political landscape. And so we stand by for the proceedings in the Honourable House, where the three new senators will be appointed into the Parliament. At this point in time, we go to standby, take you back to Master Control as we await today's commencement. It is scheduled to begin at 10 o'clock, or it's 10:07, so having a late start already, but we are on standby for the commencement of today's parliamentary proceedings. Stay with us.